I want to welcome everybody to the second in our Lean Six Sigma series. This one is interesting one in that it relates to the word define, because we're using the deployment platform that we talked about in our first session of DMAIC, define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And define is really describing the problem and setting the project goal. And so what are the goals of the define phase? We need to understand the project itself, and that includes the purpose and the scope. Determine whether the process is a good candidate for Lean Six Sigma. Map the process in some way and identify the customer expectations. I think this is critical, again, when we look at what the point of Lean Six Sigma is all about. And then put some tasks together, orient some timelines, and some project management goals as we think about kind of where we want to go. So determining that process is really going to be really critical. And then, of course, we have to define who are our customers. Are they patients? Are they payers? Are they staff? Are they suppliers? Who really are we serving in that one particular process that we're taking a look at? And what are the requirements of the customer and in terms of what they expect from quality, time, value, and of course, what's important to them. Then defining the process boundaries, I think, is also very critical. Because again, we want to be careful for project creep and for the scope of the project itself. I also like to start by coming up with what's my business case? What's the purpose behind what we're all about? So as we think about the business case, what is the market demand, the organizational need, the customer request, technology, what are the legal issues related to it, any ecological or social issues that are around it. So as we think about this, we should write a paragraph or so about what is a business case with each of those points that I just mentioned as a key to the whole thing. Now, there's some ways you can do this in terms of putting together, say, a matrix that might say, who is the customer? What are they, what, when, why, where, how? Those types of questions. Who is the customer? What do they need? When do they need it? Where do they need it? Why do they need it? And how are we going to provide it for them? So I think it's important that we take a look at that to achieve something called critical to quality, CTQ. And what's critical to quality? That is what we really, it's all about. So, the voice of the customer might say, I really hate going to your office. Well, why do you hate going to the office? Because, the wait time is so long. Well, okay, so what is the critical to quality or the customer requirement? Well, perhaps they'd like to be seen by the provider or certainly by the triage team within 10 minutes of arrival in the office. So that would be a goal that we could put in the definition of what we are all about. Our process is to look at how we can make our visit more effective for our customer. And I like to use sort of an equation where V equals R minus E. Because remember, we're talking about customer expectations and customer value or quality. Well, a customer comes with a certain amount of expectation. And if they come and have an expectation of X, and we don't achieve that expectation, the results of that visit is below the expectation. If we exceed that, then of course the results of the visit are above that. So if we think about V equals R minus E, so what are the results of the expectation and how is that relationship really becomes very important for us to think about. We also then think about, in terms of that customer, what another part of, remember our definition of lean, talked about waste. And so when we look at waste, we got to cut out waste. And so when we think about cutting out waste, we have to fix those defects. We have to cut out over processing, reduce inventory, reduce movement or unnecessary movement between rooms or of activity, paper, supplies, technology that we're going to be using, and of course, reduce waiting time. So if we can reduce waste, we increase the value for the customer. Now, as we talked in session 1 about the structure of the idea with the deployment platform, one of the critical things that we found out through the many years of doing Lean Six Sigma with the Green Belt program and different things like that, is a project charter. And a project charter, okay, it's a form, it's a piece of paper, but what does it really mean? It helps you identify as the project manager, what is the scope? What are our goals? What are the resources that are going to be required? What are the time frames? How are we going to communicate? What are the constraints that we have and that sort of thing? And you can go to several different sources, and certainly you can email me and I will send you a copy of what we use as a project charter form. And we can do it, it'll be coming in Word format, so it'll be easily used, easily revised for you. But I really like the idea of a project charter, and a good one will help describe the issues and give you your objectives, identifying your customers. It establishes the rules of the game. And it's a way to get buy-in when you communicate to your fellow team members as to how you're going to go about it. So I think it's really important that you think about using a project charter. And again, you can get the form by emailing me if you would like. Another one of the tools that we like to use in helping us in the define stage. And again, in defining, what are we doing? We're getting the scope, we're getting the purpose, we're getting the objectives, but we're also beginning to assign tasks to our team members. And we're looking at what the time frame is. So we can use something called the Gantt chart, which is nothing other than simply looking at and using Excel spreadsheet, where you put the issue in one column, who's responsible in a second column, the goals in the third column, and then the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth column, whatever, would be the time frame. It'd be a day, week, month that you would be looking at it. And down from your headings, you would then talk about what are the tasks that are going to be assigned and going to be needed in order to accomplish that. Again, a task list is part of your project charter, but it also can be used in a Gantt chart format. And these change. And one of the things we have to remember is that if you use this project charter as a way of helping you define what your project is, what the scope of your project is, but it's not necessarily cast in concrete, because as you get more feedback from individuals that are involved, as you see more activity occur and that sort of thing, then it's important for you to recognize that the project charter can change. Now, I've mentioned before the idea of, the project charter will change because you'll get others involved. Well, there are certain team members that you're going to need to have as you go through your project, because you don't want to fix something in your practice that's done just by yourself. So you'll have various roles, such as a champion, and a champion might be your CEO, it might be your board chairman, it might be a physician who is actually the person who you would turn to and say, this is what we're all about. They would help champion the project to others in the organization. You might need a facilitator, somebody to sort of help keep you in line. A team leader, which would be hopefully yourself in leading the team, or a project manager. Then there's something called process owners, and this is a critical role. Process owner is the one who actually does the work. They sort of own the pieces of the process. And there might be several different steps along the way. And so you might have several process owners for each one of the steps or tasks that are there. But you'll want to include process owners in any project that you put together. You might also have SMEs, subject matter experts, that are either internal to your organization or even potentially external to the organization. These would be people that would not necessarily be involved in every step along the way, but would provide insights and input to your team and yourself as the project manager. And then, of course, one of the other key things is the recorder, and that is you want to keep track of everything that occurs. So either you or a member of your team or even a separate individual can record the minutes of the meeting and help you record the various activities that go on. So as the team leader, you're going to be the one who's going to select the team. Who are the process owners that would be most likely to be best involved? And that could be somebody who really buys into the idea, or somebody who maybe doesn't buy in as much, but you think has a lot of potential, who you could get involved with in terms of becoming a process owner. And each member must contribute in some fashion to the whole process itself. So when you're selecting team members, you want to get those that are going to be willing to, and that you know you can encourage to contribute, so that they share what they would like to do for achieving your goal. So the key steps in the define phase: put your project charter together, validate your problem statement, identify the financial benefits. That's part of your business case as to what actually occurs and needs to occur. Create your communication plan and your project plan. So at the end of this phase, we should be able to have a completed project charter, identified the customer needs, the customer expectations, the critical to quality component that we're looking for. You might create a high-level process map of your current state, and you could hopefully get some consensus from your team members as to what the hypothesis is, what your expected goal is, and how you might go about it. Final word of caution: do not jump to conclusions. When you're in the define phase, it might be easy to say, well, yeah, we can do this. Well, the key on the whole concept of using a deployment platform and the discipline behind the deployment platform is to make sure that you do not jump to conclusions. And we expect that when you take your time to come up with this, you'll come up with a much better solution, a much better conclusion than you would have otherwise. So again, want to emphasize that define phase is probably the most difficult phase that you would have. And the reason is because it takes time to think these things through. It's worthwhile taking the time. And we hope that what we've done in this session is shared with you the fact that the define phase identifies the solutions, or potential solutions, the processes that are processes are the steps, the tasks, the activities, the team members, and that you've put it together in a decent format, such as using your project charter to, in fact, complete and to succeed as you move forward. So I want to thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to sharing with you in session number 3. We'll be talking about measure at that time.